Hello everyone and welcome to episode 100 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and Soundcloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. Catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice, listed in the description below. I am your host of this 100th episode. Holy shit, guys, we got here.
You hear all those, like, you know...
Pew, 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 pew.
He's the host. He's no longer the overseer.
Yeah, he's
I liked that he kind of forgot who he was in the intro there.
Yeah.
I didn't forget. Wizard never forgets.
He's just trying to think if he had anything clever to say.
See, look, Mal knows me.
Mal calls it.
But I was gonna say, we all know that.
You exactly knew what I was doing there.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I was trying to think of a title for Lily because she doesn't have one.
For a few times.
Special guest Lily. She has no title.
No title.
Thanks.
Your title's wife of meta. That's all you're delegated to.
However many she ends up on, she's always special guest.
She's always special guest. Yes.
I think this is only my third time.
Yeah, something like that.
It's yeah.
I did the Goblins and then the video game awards, and now name another time I've been on.
That's true.
Name another time I've been on that wasn't me shouting across the room at the microphone.
Whenever we get around to Goblins version 2 for monthly modules.
Coming 2021.
2021, like the Foxland.
Honestly, because I don't believe it's going to be that soon.
So many jokes that no one will understand.
No, I can't help it.
Relevant references that everyone will understand.
Exactly.
Much like all the things that we like to link to each other that are also showing up in obviously.
All of our Discord channels are just obscure reference after obscure reference that no one in the channel will ever understand.
Even during the podcast when we're like making jokes, I'll sometimes do something that's like a visual based joke, and I forget that like it's terrible for radio medium. Sure, the audience will absolutely love this joke.
Look at this.
Well, I always like Obs. He'll just include that picture when it comes to that point on.
Hell no.
Nope.
You think he's that dedicated?
I was at one point.
And then he realized he could do less for more.
I know, right?
His package shall not be understood.
He's been corporatized.
Alright.
It's like every mom pop shop, and then he turns into like corporate, and then he just goes downhill.
I need to hire people to do this for me.
Oh, God.
We need to hire an editor. The Wall That Will Not Fall, Tetsuo, the Dark Forge Duelist Meta, Resident Wildcard Mao, we're all here, and it's episode 100. So we got tons of special things, giveaways, awesome stuff. No, we don't have any. We don't have any of that. We have like one topic that...
I like Mao just really shuts down. Nope.
Yeah. I'm going to change your title from the Resident Wildcard to the Voice of Reason.
No, it's just as no.
It's not happening.
Or no, Mao.
I don't know. I don't think he's always reasonable. Sometimes he's slightly less than reasonable.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, Obs is mind reader.
Okay, well, that's probably true.
Well, on that note, Meta, do you wanna link it back to episode 1?
No, not with that kind of segue. No, not with that kind of segue.
Okay,
that was
as students of Bushido and the cosmology of Legend of the Five Rings and Rokugan, we understand that everything is a circle.
Oh God!
Life,
we're not
birth,
doing this.
death, reincarnation.
I'm gonna spin the void to reduce that damage by 10.
Everything's a circle except for the circles. The circles are squares.
I'm gonna take that shitty transition now, and I'll go into what actually matters.
Save the audience.
Hey, that's what I got.
Spend a void point to nope out of this. So when we first started up with this podcast, and I thought I was gonna fail spectacularly.
Wow.
Say it hasn't.
I was gonna say, and I feel like I'm right after the 100th episode.
Just getting that point's a success in itself.
I know, right? when failure becomes success, the true
Exactly.
circle story.
We haven't abandoned each other yet.
This is the only
It's
thing
only a
going
matter
for
of
us.
time. I give us to episode 120.
120. That's when we finally break apart. We can get a documentary made on us.
Yeah, we added this new Lily character. And
Yeah,
really started
behind the
doing it.
music.
None of the fans liked it.
I'm like the Yoko of the group. I'm
Uh,
breaking
yeah.
up the band.
Oh no.
Lily went back to her planet.
Except we've known you as long. Or I mean,
Probably.
I assume Obs is probably the only one. I guess did not
Around the
Obs
same time.
watched-
You two to-
He watched our romance happen
Right.
live. Like, he was one of the characters in Winter Court 3. Meta was one of the
Oh
characters.
wow,
in
we're
Winter
getting
Court 3.
some tea here.
I was the one who was like, yo, this dude's writing is kind of nice. Which is really what happened. I was an outsider, and I was like, oh man, this dude, Kikita Meta, like, holy shit, I really like his writing. So I slide into the DMs of the GM of the game, who I happened to know at the time, and I was like, this is going to seem really weird, bro, but can you get me that dude's Skype name? Because I just want to fangirl at him about his writing. And now here we are. Obs, that could have been you, man, if only you had written better.
Thank God for taking that bullet, Meta. Anyways,
I do what I can. Somebody
Yeah.
has to jump on this grenade.
anyways, I don't think your romance was the original topic at hand.
No, that
So
was
please
not the original
continue.
topic. But what the so the original topic was going to be going back to episode 1 because I felt like it was really actually a good thing to do is go back to episode 1.
I'm interested on this new topic actually. Like,
Yes, it's a very new topic. I've been house ruling a lot. You guys know this already, but for the audience, I have a problem, an addiction, and I'm seeing help.
The slow climb to 4.5 edition.
4.5.
It's stealth camping, right, Meta?
yeah, man. 4.25 document is what I have for L5R, and it's pretty much just me going through L5R and looking at anything that was like weird or odd or really terrible. Like the advantage friend of the elements, where it's like you choose an element, and anytime you have to make a trait roll of that, you can add like a free raise to it, which never happens unless it's Earth Ring, or possibly Void. So I was going through and I've been editing it, and I've been doing a lot of house ruling, and we've had 2 years essentially of time since this topic is. I brought this topic up
Almost
on our
3
first episode. Yeah, it's actually that's
Yeah,
true.
almost 3.
Yeah.
We do not do every week, despite the intro.
All right, Mal. Episode 101. I'm going to edit the intro. We're going to have a new one.
We're gonna have a new intro. Oh man, we're really updating with the times. So I kind of looked back on it and it got me thinking, because with all the house ruling and whatnot, it's done like a lot of stuff, and some of the stuff I really liked what I've done. Some of the stuff I'm like, it probably could be better. There's some of the stuff I'm like, this is probably better as like an optional rule. But at the end of the day, it really comes back to things that I don't like about L5R. And that was the first question. And it was very open-ended because I wasn't thinking about specifics at the time. I just asked, like, what's something about L5R you just don't care for? Like a concept or like an idea that they have with the world, or even a mechanic of the thing. And we all give our answers in some degree or form. Mine was about Shoryudo, which still stands to this day. I still don't care for Shoryudo. I think it's really dumb and stupid. But looking back on it now, we've had, essentially, nearly 3 years, as you stated, of time. We've still played the game to this day of 4th edition. We enjoy it. We've tried 5th edition. We've seen, like things we enjoy about it, things we don't like about it. We've played the beta. We've had some of us play the actual version of it. And some of us, I think, to some extent or another, at least keep tabs on where it's going. I don't know how much we're currently playing of that version, but
Obs, I think, is the only one who does.
Yeah.
Is the only one who has played a large amount of it, I think.
Like 8 or 9 sessions of it.
Yeah.
there you go.
So.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not, experts on the system, but in all of that time, we've still been playing 4th edition because for whatever reason, we're either idiots and really love the system despite its flaws. And it kind of got me, like I said, thinking about the whole system and everything. I thought to myself, what a better question than to ask the same thing I asked that long ago at episode 1 is, what is something that you don't like about L5R? But specifically, what is something that you don't like mechanically about L5R 4th edition? Something that you thought was just really weird, or you would love to see change, or something that could have been updated. or done. And obviously, don't like say like something like the ring system that they have in 5th edition. We all like that. That's not. We've already talked
Damn
about
it,
that.
Meta.
I'm taking away your choice. I know you're a mind, obviously.
I'm an open book.
But what is like after all this time and all this more play experience that we've had through the years? What is just something mechanically you don't like about 4th edition?
I want to hear Lily's opinion first.
Yeah,
She's
actually,
the guest. We haven't actually got to hear any of her
So,
opinions really.
I know, right? I have 2 actually. If
Oh,
don't
you only
mind
get
a
one.
rant.
We're on a time schedule here. Yeah, go.
So the first one would probably be the skills. There's too many skills. There's so many
You
skills.
play Pathfinder. I don't want to hear that from
Okay,
you.
I bitched about it in Pathfinder too.
All
though.
right.
I really are. It's just like I feel like they need to condense some of the skills down.
There's less skills in Pathfinder than 4E.
There might be, yeah.
There is,
I mean,
and that's not if you're counting
especially
like
when you count sub skills.
or like lore skills, where you have to
Yeah.
choose a
Yeah,
category,
yeah,
or
yeah,
like
the macro
medicine
skills.
Because
Yeah.
like Pathfinder does multiple knowledges, but
But they
4E does it
encompass-
for multiple skills.
yeah.
Like it breaks them like multiple skills down into sub skills or whatever.
The other thing is like when you have like a lot of those macro skills and whatnot, they can technically also get their own emphasis if you really get delving into it. So you start getting like specializations in specializations, and like there's no, especially like when you get to like things like obscure like the clans and whatnot, like a lore clan role. What clan are you talking about? Are you like there's a lore clan for the great ones, there's a lore for the small ones, and when you want to be a character, like who wants to just be a character who's like studied a lot in library, knows a lot about like the Empire, that means you spend an absurd amount of EXP to just have some like skill points on the lore of certain clans. And I think almost everybody in this group has actually stated this in some shape or form. That if you pretty much want to be just somebody who's like knowledgeable, just take Sage.
Yeah, I was
It's
literally
pretty
about
much
to say
Yeah, that's
that.
what I was going to suggest. Know the school, Meta. Know the school. Third edition.
3rd edition. Oh god.
I really
But
want to kill scorpions, so I'm taking Know the School.
Are y'all ready for Tets to totally surprise y'all?
No, I want to hear Lily
Do it.
finish hers first.
What did you have or what is it about skills you do not like, Lily?
Other
Just
than
that-
the mount.
it makes it hard to build your character because it's like you get stuck in building a character who you feel represents the different aspects of your character and their hobbies, or you need to use those points to go into the skills that you really, really need in order to keep yourself alive.
Just gimp
So it's
yourself.
like-
Totally.
Yeah,
For flavor.
You could gimp
That's
yourself.
what I do.
Which is, I quite enjoy it, but even then it's like, okay, well, so I like cooking, and I like sewing, and I like arts and crafts, but it's a different skill for everyone. I mean, like, look at, like, Ikebana, and flower, and gardening, and botany. Like, those are all things that could fall underneath one skill, but they're all 3 different skills.
Well, let me tell you about 5th edition, Lily.
Don't you
Where they
start.
combine a lot of that. No.
Don't you start. We talked about this.
What's your second small gripe? Go on, continue. I want to hear that too.
This one's smaller. It's the weapon damage for a lot of the different weapons. It's like, why not just take a katana? Why not go to a blacksmith and be like, yo, give me one of them special blades?
Why not
But I-
Nodachi? That's the real question.
It's like,
true.
you get so gimped on like certain other weapons if you decide I want to be different and not use a katana. I want to use like a spear or war fans or my fists or knives or maybe dual daggers or something. And it's like, well, sure, but be prepared to do no damage.
Actually,
No,
like,
you just take the school that specializes in it.
oh my god, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shoves his feet under the rug.
Shoves Matsu under the rug. I can be good with everything because I always do more damage.
Yeah.
The
Something you can get fists, I think, with the monk, and then 2 advantages. You can get up to keep 4,
yes, that's true.
but you have to get Naga. You have to take the Naga advantage or thing too. The one that
Yeah,
lets you take Naga advantages and hope your GM lets you
Do
take
that
the,
and be a
the
Togashi.
lesser point one. Yeah.
I was
If
wondering.
you-
how you
K5.
Oh, that's crazy.
If you take, I think it's Stone Hands. You take a monk. I think the Togashi monk is like a classic one, but if you
You'll
take the
eventually
Togashi
get
monk,
it.
Stone Hands and or Fist of Stone, not Fist
Yeah.
of Stone. then you can get keep 4, because at rank 7 mastery it also gives you another keep 1, and the base is always keep 1.
Yeah, and then there's the Naga. If there's the advantage that lets you take Naga advantages, and there's another Naga advantage that gives you
another
Just be
keep
completely
1.
useless at like character creation, but
Everything except
eventually
punching.
But when you punch, you fucking
you're gonna
punch.
grapple a guy
Yeah.
and then you're gonna instantly snap his neck.
But so that's where my gripe comes in,
Mm.
is that if you want to use a weapon that's not a katana,
Like
you
war
have
fans,
to
right?
build like war fans, exactly. You have
be
to
fair-
build yourself with all these special advantages to get there.
To
Don't
be
you
fair,
rag on me
fan-
by
war
war fan.
fans are not exactly like I could understand if you were arguing about like spears or something, but you're talking about a
war
war fan.
fans are like meant to be an offhanded weapon.
Yeah,
not
they were.
Oh,
they were
yeah.
designed for that.
And
But-
an argument for like the it's a mechanical choice to try to enforce a flavor a setting staple, right? Like if you allowed everybody to pick everything, you say, "Oh, all samurai use katana because that's the symbol of samurai," and then
But
every
then you
single
have
player-
no one using katana because you use
Exactly.
whatever other weapon seems cooler.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it is a fine balance. I'm not saying it's the right choice. I'm just saying I can see why.
It's
they-
also weapons are honestly something that aren't executed amazingly in
No,
much
they're
of
not.
anything.
Yeah,
Because
I'd agree
it's
with
hard.
that.
You either get it to where they all do the same damage and then have like no mechanical difference, or what, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or you get where there's a bunch of mechanical difference and then you end up with L5R.
I really love the way, and we played it once, Exalted does it with the different, like, every weapon has, like, 6 different stats. It makes them very, like, different fluff wise. Like, you can get a really fast weapon, so you can act multiple times before other people. Like,
It actually reminds me.
kinda cool.
Like what you're talking about also reminds me of like this other game, and it's like your weapon. It's like a Western game, and I can't remember what the game is, but it was like super. I think it's like an older game or technical. I don't remember the name of it.
Deadlands?
Like, no, I don't think it's Deadlands.
no, it's not.
But you could actually, depending on how your gun was built, could actually define a lot of things. Like if you're gonna do like a high noon type scenario where you draw on each other, you actually wanted a gun with a shorter barrel on it because it actually gave you bonuses to drawing it out faster. But in a shootout, you might have wanted a longer barrel on the weapon because it would have better accuracy bonuses.
Yeah, that's pretty
to
cool.
it. There were stuff like that where you would like roll for like lots of minutia stuff, and a lot of like how your weapon was built would change it up. But then you get really into like nitty gritty details of something that most people aren't going to care about.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like on the weapon damage thing, this is another thing I actually do heavily agree with. This is something I don't like. I would have just stated is like it's kind of weird because the swords are in a very good position. The heavy weapons are in a very good position, but then you get weapons like pole arms, spears, chain weapons, and even staffs. Like
And part of
spears
it
and whatnot.
is like the masteries are just not equivalent, right? Like some
Yeah.
classes
that's
just
too.
have way better masteries.
The other things like the weapon sizes are like for spears and pole arms, they're almost all large weapons,
Yep.
which if you know the rules requires that you draw as a simple action. A lot of melee weapons have that too, but a lot of times any school of weapon that has that kind of like limitation on it generally has a mastery, allows you to draw it as a free action or
Right.
ready as they call it. But
you could probably change it to, or like as a base to where all weapons do keep 2 or keep 3 depending on it.
yeah,
But that would require going and like probably changing some techniques that give you extra damage and stuff.
yeah, it would.
So
And then
I think
mean,
it is something that could be fixed, but you'd have to go
There's-
through every class and everything to
there's-
make sure someone's not doing something completely busted.
I'm gonna give a shout out to just an individual's document. I don't remember the name of it. In fact, I might have it here. But somebody actually went through and had some really great ideas on how to remodify weapon damage and whatnot, and actually
Mhm.
kind of made it feel more worthwhile to pick up some of the lesser used weapons. Mostly they buffed up weapons like pole arms, which are like mostly all keep 2 except for the Bacento. They actually allowed Naginatas to act like katanas. There are 3 keep 2. You can spend a void point on them to increase the damage to like 4 keep 3 for the damage roll, which I thought was really cool, and it felt very thematic because Naginatas are kind of mentioned as in some shape or form
Katana on a
kind of
stick.
samurai. Yeah, like a katana on a stick, pretty much. They made chain weapons. They buffed them up a little bit so that they're not like all 0 keep 1s or 0 keep 2 type scenarios.
Yeah.
And then spears and whatnot had a little bit more usage on them and the like. But ultimately, it was a really good document. It's called the L5R Weapon Rack, and it's on img.fireden.net. Probably related to there. There's a longer URL for it, but you can probably use that to search it up. I would recommend it to anybody. They do have some ideas I like, some not so much. Like for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but they must love Tetsuos. They specifically allowed
everybody does, right?
for some reason, man, just sweet love to it.
What's wrong with
Nothing wrong with it. The only problem is that at rank 5 mastery, you can not only keep your free raise on a knockdown, but they also stated that your Tetsuo emphasis also allows you to applies on damage rolls as well. So you just re-roll ones on damage rolls. I'm like, that's utterly unnecessary.
It's already one of the best weapons to be using.
Yes, it is literally one of the de facto best weapons to pick up, barring the, for some reason, overlooked but amazing Nodachi. I don't know why that weapon is the way it is. But they rebalance
bigger katana meta.
It's but for some reason, even though it's a
be
large
better
sword,
than a katana.
it's a large sword that swings like a Tetsuo, but you can ready it for free. It's just,
Yes.
oh god,
What's the problem?
I do like his Nodachi fix. It actually is a lot more like the 3E Nodachi, where it was just rolled an extra dice. But it makes sense because it's commonly a weapon that was used against mounted opponents, so you get bonus damage on larger mounted opponents. It's a giant
boring
cleaving sword.
Plus, it also gives you free raises and knockdown, and you actually get to get.
I don't play this game to be historically accurate.
I play this game to be awesome.
Now.
So, all right. Well, what about the rest of you guys though? What are yours? Because we've heard, I think, Lily's. But what about
Ted
you?
sounded like he was ready to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Ted.
I had a comment about the skills that she was talking about.
Okay.
Wasn't quite my topic.
Okay, it sounded like you were segueing into yours.
Yeah.
No,
I apologize.
I was just surprising everybody by saying that I'm going against the grain and saying that I like the skill structure.
Okay, well, what do you like about it?
I don't know.
You're a monster. You're wrong. I don't like you. We're not.
I don't think there's a problem with skills themselves.
This is the end of the podcast.
I like, to be honest, I either like there being very, very few skills, like we're looking at under 10, or if we're going to go with skills, give me a massive skill list. Like, let me have that granularity of choice that allows me to dial in my character. So that I like the extremes, and L5R goes more towards the larger end.
I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with the number of skills even, but like the way the game is doesn't really support it. Like Lily was saying, you end up gimping your character some of the time. Yeah, just because there are a lot of expectations with even just, again, if you want to be someone smart, you can't, it's physically impossible to take all the lore skills.
Yeah.
But I think too, right, like that's part of it is that, like, even though you're the main characters, you're playing like the samurai, but at the same time you're still just samurai. And if you're looking, I mean, yeah, we came off of playing, a Third Day of Thunder game where we all played
I'll
Thunder.
have you know that my samurai is also a librarian and should know a lot of things. Excuse you.
Right, like were the samurai really known for their library keeping skills? What with the whole?
I don't play this game.
I mean,
I don't
have
play
you
this
played
game
the
for real.
Phoenix? Have you heard of the Phoenix Clan?
To be fair, that is quite literally what the Phoenix do, is just be knowledgeable. Their courtier school is literally, I add roles for knowledge.
Right, but because of that, they're pacifists. They sit in their libraries. They don't practice the sword. They don't have kenjutsu ranks.
Wow, you're insulting all the Shiba.
Well, Ted, so let me tell you about 5th edition. Quote of the episode.
Cease and desist. I'm going to put you in timeout, Ups.
I don't even remember what I said in the first episode about the things I dislike about the game, to be honest.
It doesn't matter. It was mostly just like looking back on it now, and is there something?
Mine was probably the Mantis Clan.
I think my biggest thing. I was
mechanically,
the Mantis Clan.
Thematically,
they're all too similar. No,
I was
the Mantis Clan
the Mantis and the Spider because they just flavor-wise irk me so much because they are trying to be the crab, the crane, and the scorpion combined in different ways.
The topics are railed.
3 favorite clans, and they're stupid.
Yeah.
No, mechanically though. probably, I guess, the thing that kind of irks me the most that I run into when I'm doing character creation is anything that gives bonuses to ring rolls.
Oh
Because
god.
there's a ton of things that give bonuses to ring rolls. How often do you make a ring roll?
Yeah.
What's a ring roll?
Yeah, right? Exactly.
I don't understand. What is that?
I don't even know what calls for it,
It's
honestly.
what I'm going to call for it when you need to run away from something that's chasing you.
Isn't
No,
that
that-
athletics?
That would be
Athletics, water, ring roll.
No, that's a skill roll. That's not a ring roll.
Yeah, that's a
It's
skill.
athletics, water. So you have athletics, therefore it's skill. Ring roll would just be roll your water. Water, keep water.
Maybe I'll just give you a water roll.
I'm like, why did I take athletics then, Obs?
So you can ignore
Back to the
difficult
skill
terrain.
problem.
Yeah.
So you can jump and ignore difficult terrain.
Oh god. What if it's long distance, Ob, and I have to keep my stamina in check?
Maybe it's an earth ring.
I think
Because you gotta have will to run for a long time, too.
Earth. Well, no,
I'll fail that one immediately.
Wait, why does my running emphasis
No,
not?
fire is literally the most useless one. Fire
But
and
that's-
air.
I was gonna say, but like int, that's a trait roll. It would have to be totally just the ring. And I
Yeah.
think the only one that comes up regularly, quote unquote, is the Earth Ring, and
Yeah.
that's for resisting like knockdown. Oh, well, knock down the
Taint.
maneuver, but like spell. What is the level 1 air spell where you just like blow a bunch of wind on somebody and try and knock them over?
Oh,
Yeah.
Isn't it Tempest of Air? Or
Tempest
something?
Yeah,
of
Tempest
yeah.
of Air. I believe that's an Earth check, or maybe that one's not.
No,
but,
it's an air check versus I think their Earth, and they have to roll a certain value, and if they succeed, they don't get knocked
Yeah.
on their pants.
So it's pretty much if you're a Shugenja who wants lots of those spells where you're making contested ring rolls, that's basically like
Exactly.
when that advantage is good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
finally,
really
my friend of the
that.
elements, time to shine.
Exactly.
Finally, I
I
get
mean,
to
it's
use
honestly
it.
pretty good for air Shugenja.
It is if you're making an.
Because
Oh, that's
every air
that's a
Shugenja
trait
should
roll.
probably have
It's
that
not even
spell.
a ring roll,
It's just a trait roll. It's not even the ring.
right?
Oh wow.
Well, what
That's
are you
interesting.
rolling off?
Yeah, speaking actually, I'm gonna jump off of Tats here because I'm gonna talk about the Earth Ring as well because this is the one thing I've actually kind of thought about recently that I don't care for. I don't like the fact that the Earth Ring seems to be out of the 4 basic rings, the only one that seems to have a reason to be rolled. It actually has. I shouldn't say that rolled, but it actually has like a solid fundamental stat associated with it.
Chosen
Fire-
by the oracles, by the way, is the one that gives you a bonus to ring rolls.
There you go. The Earth
You're
Ring.
right, though. Like a lot of times Earth Ring comes up, it should just be stamina, not Earth itself.
No. The fire ring, the water ring, and the air ring don't actually specifically affect anything mechanical wise by themselves. But the earth ring, this dude is like one of the most important things. It makes up 2 traits, one of which is pretty lackluster.
The water ring is movement, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Air
That
helps
is
you in
true.
defense stance. Less like game breaking than water or
less-
It's a
earth.
very
But
minor
But,
benefit.
yeah,
I'm gonna
Earth
say
is
these-
much more required for survivability.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
fire is the useless one that literally
Fire-
does
I mean,
nothing.
But
Yeah.
air ring only works. The air ring only does something if you're in defense stance. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Water
ring
and
only
earth are the
matters.
2 that have a large effect. Earth a
Right.
bigger effect
I
than
did
that.
forget
but-
about water, but
Yeah.
but Earth was the one I was thinking about. That really was the one I had a problem with because Earth becomes such a fundamental part of your character build. Not everybody needs to raise up their water to move more, but
No.
everybody mandatorily
that's-
must raise their Earth ring if they want
That
to.
ties
keep
back
their
though
character.
to just L5R being a more lethal game, which a lot of people enjoy about the setting. So
It's
I
but
was
it's
gonna say, being somebody who plays a Hida in the current 4th edition game we're playing, I'm playing a Matsu with a 2 Earth, and every single time I get in any sort of combat, I'm always like on the edge of my seat on round 1 because if I fail and I get hit, I am squishy dead playing a Matsu, and that's kind of fun. But I also
here's-
know that I'm the weird person in the group, so
But I mean, if you like lethal game, the Earth ring won't change that. My point being is that the Earth ring is tied to something so fundamental.
that's fair.
It is something that in any game is a mandatory thing to gain more of in order to continue to be able to play that character. It's a pretty much a fundamental part of leveling up. It's a basic, it is your meter of survivability.
Right,
even
but
if
if the
there's
game wasn't as lethal, then you wouldn't need it as much.
I don't care if it's lethal or not. That's not my point. I just feel it's really weird that that's such a point of mechanic is tied to something, to traits that aren't all that used. Like willpower can be used in some defensive, like social roles, and I think it's even used in a fear effect. If I remember correctly,
It's your like social defense skill, basically.
Yeah,
willpower is used in like a bunch of different.
Stamina is the one that never comes up.
Stamina was never comes up, but here's the thing. Well, it's not always used in all social kind of scenarios though, because there are certain roles and techniques that force you to use awareness instead.
I think willpower.
It's like 80% of them probably.
I think willpower biggest comes up in disadvantages and like trying to resist those.
You're usually making like an etiquette willpower check.
Yeah, it's almost always associated to disadvantages, but the Earth Ring itself being linked to that, I always thought to myself it would be interesting to see if somebody had taken that, and instead of associating it so heavily with the Earth Ring, instead gave a more linear progression, like more like attached to, dare I say it and upset somebody here, more attached to your insight rank, and that you can still raise up the Earth Ring, but it would add just more extra HP, so to speak, or extra wounds to your.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like what D&D does, where every class has their own health like amount, right? Like you can make courtiers.
You could definitely do that, sure. Yeah,
you get more health than courtier type thing.
I wonder how much too it stems from. L5R is not D&D. It has its roots in D&D, but it isn't. And they, in trying to transfer D&D players to it, they associate Earth Ring with Constitution, and willpower is the best way to define mental constitution. But it really doesn't exactly correlate. And again, Constitution's another one. Like that's very, if you want to survive in D&D, you really do need to focus at least somewhat on your constitution.
You need it mostly for fortitude saves. That's really the bigger important part about your constitution, is having a good
and your HP.
Yeah, but even for HP, you could still roll. You're still getting more HP, but like compared to L5R, you can't gain more HP unless you gain more Earth Ring.
Right.
It doesn't matter what inside rank you're at.
Yeah, that's
Play.doji, you scrubs.
That they wanted. They wanted it to be Constitution, but because of some of the mechanical choices they did elsewhere, it doesn't exactly correlate, and so therefore it kind of falls a little bit on its face.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I would have loved to see like an idea just played around with that, where your health is more associated with your insight rank, and then you gain extra bonus health from the Earth Ring. I don't know how that would fully work. I had ideas running through my mind about it.
Well, I don't like it.
just discussing some house rule sort of stuff. I could see it being based off of your like ninja, monk, bushy, courtier. You get a certain.
I could do that.
Whatever.
Why don't we just play D20 L5R then?
No.
All right.
No.
I'm glad we're in agreement.
If your school makes sense or your family makes sense to have more HP, like say he did, you would then have to have a technique built in that then gave you the extra HP.
And they have
I think the other thing would also be is that you could, you can obviously, per even the core book mentions this in the back of it, but you can also modify like how much each ring is being affected by the Earth Ring.
That's probably how I would say you do it. Like if you wanted to make it like a little bit more granular like that, you could go like Courtier's going to get Earth times 1 or Earth times 2, but Bushi get Earth times 3. Yeah, so.
Oof. That would be rough. Earth times 1. Ooh.
That might
don't be a courtier.
No, they get Earth times 3. Bushy get Earth times 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously you can change it depending on how grindy you want combat to be and whatnot. But,
exactly.
It's really funny we're talking about how lethal L5R is, and I just realized I'm the worst type of player to be in a system with high lethality because I get so attached to my character.
Easy to die, no resurrection. At least base set.
Mao's the same way though, if I recall correctly. You don't.
Yes, I get very attached to my characters, so I don't want them to die.
All right. Well, what's your change, Mao? Yeah, one thing you'd like to see done.
I don't like how primarily Bushi get the simple attacks at 3 or 4. It makes such a big difference to get them at rank 4 versus 3, and it always feels kind of like I don't know. It's a big deal to get them when you get them, but it's also kind of like it just feels kind of blah. Like I'm not getting anything else when I level up.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Well, Mal, let me tell you about 3rd edition.
Don't you start.
Yes, I would like all of my rings to everything.
Comically, 3rd edition is the only physical book of L5R that I have.
Wow.
You want to instead die every time you get hit once, but you're adding 30 to everything.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like it doesn't feel as special because, well, it's like, oh, this is the level you get to make simple attacks. Nothing else that's like thematic for like to my school.
I absolutely agree with that. It's also very weird because for a large portion of the game, generally if you're running through it with like an Earth 3, that's kind of quasi-survivable. You can do that while nothing is like swinging, twice at you. But the moment like opponents can start making 2 attacks, or you can start making 2 attacks, Earth Ring thing is not enough. Even Earth Ring 4 doesn't feel like enough. It feels like you need to be at a 5 to even have a chance of like, making it through like a round of combat at times if you're really going at it. Mm-hmm. And that's only more I want to say I don't remember the word for it, but it only gets more apparent when somebody's like rocking like a keep 3 type weapon on them. It gets really nasty really fast.
Right.
And it's boring.
Yeah.
I'm expanding on what I already do.
Kind of going back to the whole skills thing, and apparently we're coming back to it, so it's an even bigger problem than we realized, is that not all schools get simple attacks on everything. Like, it's only... Most of them, it's only samurai.
Yeah, that's true.
I actually like that. As far as L5R is concerned, I'm a big, like, flavor over balance, personally.
Well, I like it, but at the same time, like, I was looking at the Heat of Pragmatist, and they get simple attacks with improvised weapons, unarmed, and samurai. But the whole thing is based around just pretty much being a judo machine. Why do they get samurai weapons as simple attacks, besides just the fact that they're samurai?
I'm going to point out on another thing for you is the opposite with the Kikita Bushi. They have Kyujutsu. They're supposed to have, like, good shots and whatnot, but they don't get double attacks with bows and arrows. So why is that, like, a school skill for them?
Exactly.
I do get what you're saying. I agree. The one thing I would recommend... Oh, sorry, go.
No, I was just going to say, I think I would prefer it to just be like, as being a Bushi, you get simple attacks at rank 3, and then your rank 3 technique can be like a technique, and it can limit what your simple attacks are or something, right?
Yeah, you're at Bushi,
like, it'll give you a fancy rank 3 attack, and it'll be like, you can only, use samurai weapons for your simple attacks or something.
That would probably help them catch up with Shugenja.
Mm-hmm.
It would, actually.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Mine is... not to say it again, but let me tell you about 5th edition.
Oh my god.
One thing we've been discussing lately is, like, how to better integrate, like, other than advantages and disadvantages, you don't really get a way outside of, like, a couple of, like, extra character points at character creation to really, like, kind of shape what your character's into or hobbies and stuff. One thing I love that 5th edition does is it ties your stats, like your rings, your honor, your glory, your status, into the game of 20 questions. So depending on how you write your character's backstory or choose certain things, you have different skills, stats, honor, status, glory, starting items. It's actually really cool and probably one of my favorite things about 5th edition.
I will agree with that. That was a really cool
I think
part.
they could do a much better job of maybe... Well, I mean, they can't really do a much better job anymore, but like that was like the coolest thing, because the game of 20 questions has always been like a part of the game, and it's been a way for like people who aren't really good at like coming up with backstories or really familiar with like samurai drama or the setting to like, here's like some core questions you want to answer to kind of help you get into character, and figure out your character's like wants and desires and duty and all this other stuff. So yeah, that's like probably the best thing like the new edition of the game does, in my opinion, is really like tie your character mechanically into your character, the character. So it does a really good job of that. So I'd like to see more of that.
The only issue I have is I don't always want my character and mechanics to necessarily be like a 1-for-1. Like,
I'm actually interested in this. Yeah, I kind of want to know.
my current character in our play-by post is there's a high chance I'll go up to awareness 4 soon, and that would mean that they're very socially adept, but I don't play him very socially adept. So
you take antisocial.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something like you see, like in D&D, someone might have a high wisdom, but they don't act wise, right? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think I don't want to be tied by my stats.
I think like 5th edition, the way it gets around that is just by the different approaches and stuff, probably. But I see what you're saying.
It's definitely a different beast in that regard for how the two systems are. So, but yeah, it would have been cool. I think something. I don't know if you're not saying you don't like it so much as you wish it was, which I guess is another way to put it. I do have the idea. I would recommend to just anybody is that at the very minimum, just make all Bushi schools get their, if they have like a rank 4 simple attack, just put it at rank 3. So that way that at least evens them out a little bit.
But what if I want that rank 3 before
then
I
they'll
want
see
my
it as an
second
option.
attack? There you go.
Make it an option. I'll say this to any.
There's some I legitimately do want that.
I mean,
I will say this to any GM. I will say this to anybody who's running a game. Options are never bad. Give your players a choice, because nobody can go like I like. Nobody's gonna fault you for giving them 2 choices instead of saying you have to do this. They can at least choose the poison.
Like, I totally had a GM that did that rule, and I wanted my rank 3 at rank 3. I didn't want my simple attacks at rank 3 because I was playing the Haruma Scout, and I wanted that AC defense of...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, that school in particular.
And he let me do that. Thank you, Meta. And
No
so it was... but yeah, it goes back to those options, right? Like sometimes it's nice to not have that, but present it as an option, right? Because otherwise, I feel like, the default of everybody... I mean, if you're a Bushi, you're a Bushi, you're a Bushi. And if you're not progressing in that route, then you're probably more of a courtier or shugenja or ninja, and therefore your class should represent that.
Man, give me old Miramoto back. I want double attacks at rank 2.
Oh god, that's so powerful. Stop that.
No one likes Nighton.
It was so flavorful though. I love it.
I will say, I actually like Mao's point though, is that I kind of do wish that Bushi just got like their own unique techs at rank 3/4, depending on when they got double attacks. But I like the idea is that Bushi simply just got simple attacks at rank 3, and then the rank 3 tech would be something more interesting about the school. It would have allowed them to flavor it out, because one of the big problems I do feel like is that your school technically is only really designed around 4 techniques. It's not designed around 5, it's designed around 4. And you essentially, they're stating when you've got so many schools laid out that have simple attacks at rank 3, you are essentially stating that a rank 3 tech should technically be the equivalent of 2 attack, like a simple attack.
Well, if you care about balance, I don't think they necessarily cared.
I don't think they probably cared about it all that much.
I mean,
a lot of
there's
things I've
some
seen,
that are patently like very much not equivalent.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're not, which kind of is sad, because that only leads to a feeling of it only begins to exaggerate the feelings of difference between players, because it's one thing if you make just a really poor character through your own design choices and you're gimping yourself by choosing things, and it's another when you're trying to keep up with your allies and it's through the natural progression of the school or class you've chosen that's just not able to keep up with them.
I wonder if, and this might sound silly or make the problem worse, but you know how Pathfinder has archetypes? And those archetypes can actually change what your class skills are, what certain stats are. Like, I sometimes wonder how interesting it would be if you took the schools, but then you gave them archetypes. and that could affect what your starting school skills are, the order in which you get your school ranks, your school techniques, stuff like that. And like depending on what archetype you chose is how your character would be, like would affect your progression. So if you want to play a more socially oriented like Matsu, you could take an archetype that lets you get access to like courtier or etiquette or something like that more reliably as school skills, and your school techniques might be a little mixed around or something like that. I don't know, but it just seems like it could be a fun idea.
I
And
think
actually,
that was
that brings up another point too, is that like school skills make no difference for the most part after you make your character. It's literally just one rank at beginning, and
unless you have prodigy or
well, I was gonna say there's a
whatever.
few.
There's like there's no points to
Bayushi,
school.
Akuma Shadow.
Yeah, I was gonna say some schools say get a bonus to your school skills, but
Yeah.
most don't. For the most part, a school skill does not have a uniform reason for being necessarily, besides your starting skills.
It's
And-
actually kind of weird too, because they even state that like almost every school, at least again through AG of Ever Lore, it states that almost every school at least does touch on a topic or something, even if it's not normal for the school. Like Matsu talking about courtiering, for instance, it's not normal for them, but they are still aware of it because they know that obviously if you go to court as a Yojimbo or something and somebody like points you out and then tries to hit you socially, you need to be aware of that. Otherwise, you'll get shamed and then you won't be useful to anybody.
Yeah, but isn't that represented by your choose one Bugay, choose one high?
Well,
skill?
not every school has that.
Yeah,
No,
not
no,
every
no,
school
I
gets
was,
that.
I was playing devil's advocate.
Oh, okay. Don't you start with
Sorry,
me.
my sarcasm did not
Well,
quite.
You can't agree and then plays devil's advocate.
Have we all done Festivus and stated our grievances?
I think we have.
All
I
right.
think we have. But
Well-
that said, I think we should end on a positive note and say, still like the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
critical of the things we love.
Yeah.
As everyone should be.
Everyone
I guess I did.
Yeah.
All right.
You and me, Tets.
Yeah.
Y'all a bunch of naysayers. All right. Anyway,
Oh, my gosh.
I'm just messing with you. Go on, Tets.
That was literally the extent of my sarcasm.
Who's out?